Welcome back to the deep dive. We are covering a topic today that sits right at the intersection of, well, mundane home maintenance and high-stakes security.
Oh, absolutely. It's a critical intersection.
We're talking about residential locksmiths. And I know you're probably thinking about that one time you locked your keys in the car and had to wait like an hour in a random parking lot.
Which, to be fair, is the classic entry point for most people.
It is, yeah. But as we went through the research, especially looking at the market in a really dense, high turnover city like Los Angeles, it became pretty obvious that viewing a locksmith as just the person who opens the door is, well, it's actually a massive security risk.
It really is. If you think about it, the lock on your front door is literally the only physical thing standing between your living room and the street.
Right.
Yet most people spend, way more time researching which toaster to buy than they do vetting the person they hire to manipulate that lock. And as we head deeper into 2026, the whole trade is changing rapidly. It's moving away from just mechanical brass keys to complex access control and smart home integration.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. We are going to dismantle the myths about what these pros actually do. We are going to look at the economics of the locksmith scam, which is a massive and honestly terrifying industry in itself.
Huge industry.
And we are going to give you the toolkit you need to actually secure your home. And we should probably mention right up front, this is specifically tailored for the Los Angeles market, or really any major metro area where you have high density, lots of ADUs, and a ton of rental turnover.
Yeah, the rules are just different here than out in the quiet suburbs.
Right. And speaking of the LA market, before we get into the mechanics of the locks themselves, I want to flag something really important from the sources.
The panic searching.
Exactly, the panic searching. When you are locked out, your judgment is completely compromised. You're stressed. Maybe it's raining and you just grab the very first number on Google.
Which is exactly what the scammers are banking on. They rely on that desperation.
They do. So part of our goal today is to get you to save a vetted local number before the emergency even happens. We've looked at the local landscape in LA, and West Point Locksmith is the clear standout in the research.
Yeah, they really are.
They are local to LA. They have those crucial 5-star reviews, which, as we'll explain later, are essential for verification. And they cover everything from standard lockouts to the high-tech smart locks we're going to discuss.
Having that contact, it's 310-295-4040, saved in your phone, essentially inoculates you against the scams we're going to talk about. It turns a midnight crisis into just, a minor inconvenience.
So let's start with the absolute basics. What does a residential locksmith actually do? Because in my head, it's always just been a guy with a Slim Jim and a messy van.
Right, the Hollywood stereotype. But the menu of services is significantly broader. Yes, you have the emergency lockout service. That's the bread and butter. But the real value comes in what we call access control.
Access control.
Yeah. In 2026, access control isn't just for commercial office buildings with key cards. It's for your house. It's about defining exactly who has a key, how long that key works, and knowing with absolute certainty if there are any copies floating around out there.
Which brings us to the first big concept that I think a lot of first-time homeowners completely miss. And that is rekeying versus replacing. I'll be honest, I always assumed if I bought a new house, I just had to go to Home Depot, buy $400 worth of new knobs and deadbolts, and swap all the hardware myself.
And that is exactly what the big hardware stores want you to think. But it's generally a massive waste of money. Unless your locks are physically broken or you just really hate the ugly 1990s shiny gold finish, you don't replace them. You rekey them.
Walk us through the mechanics of that. Why is rekeying secure if I'm basically keeping the exact same lock on the door?
Okay, think of the inside of your lock cylinder like a mountain range. You have a series of tiny brass pins, usually 5 or 6 of them, that sit at different heights.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When you slide your key in, the jagged edge of the key pushes those pins up. If the key is the correct one, the pins all align perfectly flat at what we call the shear line, and that allows the cylinder to turn.
So it's basically a physical password.
Precisely. It's a mechanical code.
Yeah.
When a professional locksmith rekeys your lock, they don't change the metal housing on your door at all. They just take the cylinder out, dump out the old pins, that old mountain range, and put in a completely new set of pins that matches a brand new key.
Wow. So the old key physically cannot lift the pins to the shear line anymore.
Exactly. It's totally useless.
So functionally, you have a brand new lock.
Functionally, yes. But economically, it's a fraction of the price of replacing the whole unit. You're just paying for the labor and a handful of tiny brass pins, not heavy metal manufacturing.
And in a city like LA, this seems so critical. You buy a house or you rent a new apartment, and you have absolutely no idea who the previous owner gave keys to. The dog walker, the contractor, some Airbnb guest from 3 years ago.
That's the key control issue right there. If you don't rekey immediately upon moving in, you effectively have zero security. You're entirely relying on the honor system of strangers.
Which is terrifying. Okay, let's pivot to the tech side of things, because we really can't talk about home security in 2026 without talking about smart locks. I feel like everyone I know is installing these right now, but they are almost always doing it themselves. What are the professionals seeing out in the field that the DIYers are missing?
The biggest shift we are seeing right now is the move toward full ecosystem integration. A few years ago, you just bought a lock that opened with a digital keypad. Now, that lock needs to talk to your Apple HomeKit, your Amazon Alexa, your existing security system.
This is where all the acronyms start flying around in the source material. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Matter. Does a regular homeowner really need to know the difference between all these?
They do, actually, because it drastically affects the reliability of the lock. A lot of people just buy Wi-Fi locks off the shelf because they seem easy.
Right.
You just connect them straight to your home router.
Right, everyone has Wi-Fi.
But Wi-Fi is incredibly power hungry. Those locks eat AA batteries for breakfast. If you go away on a 2-week vacation, your lock might literally die while you're gone.
And if the lock dies, you're locked out of your own house.
Exactly. Unless you have a physical key override, which, by the way, is a must-have feature. Reputable locksmiths will always recommend a smart lock with a physical key backup. But the industry right now is moving toward protocols like Matter over Thread.
Matter over thread.
Yeah, these are low-energy mesh networks. They're significantly faster, much more secure, and the battery lasts way, way longer than Wi-Fi.
But here's my skepticism with the whole smart lock trend. I walk around neighborhoods like Venice or Silver Lake, and I see people installing these high-tech locks on 50-year-old wooden doors. The door is warped, the frame is totally crooked from the weather. Does the robot lock actually care about that?
Oh, the robot lock cares very much. This is actually the #1 cause of smart lock failure.
Really?
Yes. If you have to push, pull, or hip check your front door just to get the deadbolt to slide into the frame, that's an alignment issue. A human can adjust for that instinctively. We just pull the handle a bit as we turn the key.
Right, it's muscle memory.
But a smart lock motor cannot do that. It will just try to force the bolt straight out, grind against the metal strike plate, and it will either burn out the motor entirely or drain a fresh set of batteries in a week.
So getting professional installation isn't just about someone helping you pair the lock to your iPhone. It's about physically aligning the heavy wooden door so the bolt slides in like butter.
Exactly. A real locksmith will get out the chisels and physically adjust the strike plate on the door frame so there is zero friction. That is what gives you the long battery life and the actual security.
Okay, let's get into the dark side of this industry. Because the research here was frankly alarming. The locksmith scam seems to be a booming business model right now, especially in dense cities.
It's a massive problem. And it's entirely fueled by the way we search for help on our phones. We call it the lead gen model.
Explain how that works, because I think most people assume that if they see a business listed on Google Maps with a local street address, it's a real physical business.
That is a very dangerous assumption. Here's the basic anatomy of the scam. You have a call center, which is often overseas or in a completely different state. They create hundreds of fake listings on Google Maps.
Just totally fabricated.
Completely. They pick a random spot, a parking lot, a grocery store, an empty warehouse, and drop a digital pin calling it A1 Local Locksmith or 24/7 LA Locksmith.
So when I pull out my phone and search locksmith near me, I'm basically seeing ghosts.
You're seeing marketing phantom pins.
Yeah.
You call the number, thinking they are down the street, and a dispatcher answers. They usually quote you something incredibly low to get you to agree, like a $15 service call or $29 and up.
Which should be a red flag immediately. You can't even get a plumber to look at your toilet for $15.
Exactly. No skilled tradesperson is going to drive a vehicle to your house for $15. It doesn't even cover the gas in LA traffic.
Yeah.
But you're locked out, you're desperate, so you say yes.
And then what happens?
They sell your job that lead to a subcontractor. This is usually an untrained guy who shows up in an unmarked car, often without a uniform, and he's carrying a power drill.
And this is where the bait and switch happens.
Right. He arrives, looks at your standard residential a lock that a real pro could easily pick in 2 minutes, and he shakes his head.
Yeah.
He says, oh, this is a high security lock. or he claims the internal pins are fused.
He makes up a problem.
Yes. He tells you it absolutely cannot be picked and has to be drilled open.
Why the drill? Is it just that he doesn't actually know how to pick a lock?
It's partly incompetence, sure, but it's mostly just economics. If he picks your lock, he gets a small labor fee and he's on his way. But if he drills the lock, he completely destroys it.
Oh, wow. So now you need a new lock.
Precisely. Now your door won't shut, and you have to buy a replacement from him right there on the spot. And guess what? He just happens to have a trunk full of cheap, generic locks that he is going to mark up 400%.
So that innocent $15 service call turns into what?
We've seen reports of final bills hitting $400, $600, even $1,000. And they usually demand cash or Zelle on the spot, often using really aggressive intimidation tactics to get you to pay.
That is infuriating, but it gives us a very clear rule of engagement for our listeners. If the drill comes out first, you stop the job immediately.
Absolutely. Drilling is the nuclear option. It is the absolute last resort for a severely malfunctioning lock or maybe a high-security commercial vault. On a standard residential front door, if someone reaches for a power tool within the first 5 minutes without genuinely trying to pick or bypass the lock first, they are scamming you. Just kick them off your property.
This really reinforces why you need to have a relationship, or at least a vetted contact saved in your phone before you're standing on the porch freezing at midnight. We mentioned them earlier, but this is exactly the value proposition of a company like West Point Locksmith.
Right. When you dial 310-295-4040, you are reaching an actual local LA business. You aren't getting routed to a shadowy call center in another time zone. You're getting a professional technician who knows the area, who drives a clearly marked vehicle, and who genuinely cares about their reputation because they live and work in the community.
And they have the 5-star reviews to back it up. In an industry literally full of digital ghosts, you want the people who actually exist.
And who are accountable for their work.
So let's talk about realistic pricing. If $15 is a flat-out lie, what should a homeowner in Los Angeles actually expect to pay? We need to set a baseline here so people know when they are being ripped off, but also when they're just paying the fair market rate for quality work.
In a high cost of living area like LA, you really have to separate the trip fee from the labor. You should generally expect to pay a service call fee, maybe $50 to $85, just to get that mobile workshop to your driveway.
And that covers what? The gas and the time?
Yeah, that covers fuel, commercial auto insurance, and the very real cost of a technician spending 45 minutes sitting in traffic on the 405.
Okay, so that just gets the van to your front door.
Right. Then you have the labor on top of that. For a standard home lockout, the total bill, meaning the service call plus the labor, usually lands anywhere between $150 and $200 during normal business hours.
Okay, that seems reasonable. What if it's 2 in the morning on a Saturday?
Expect that price to jump significantly. True 2047 emergency rates might push the total bill to $250 or $300.
Which hurts the wallet, sure, but it's certainly not the $800 extortion scam.
Exactly. You are paying for the convenience of immediate after-hour service and the professional skill to open your home without breaking a window or destroying your hardware.
Let's touch on vetting really quickly. When the van actually pulls up to my house, what should I be looking for?
The very first thing is the vehicle itself. Is it permanently marked with the company logo? Or is it just a beat-up personal sedan with a flimsy magnetic sign slapped on the door? A professional locksmith invests heavily in their van. It's literally their office.
And what about identification?
Always ask for ID. California is actually one of the states that strictly requires locksmiths to be licensed. They should have a pocket card issued by the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. If they can't produce that card, do not let them touch your door.
There was one other vetting point in the source material that I found totally fascinating. It's what they called the two-way vetting process.
Oh, this is a huge ethical point in the trade. A legitimate locksmith acts as a physical security guard. Think about it. If I show up to a house and you say, hey, let me in, and I just pick the lock and open it, without asking for any proof that you actually live there, I'm basically helping you break into a stranger's home.
Right. I could be an angry ex-partner or a stalker or just a burglar who hired a locksmith.
Exactly. A real professional will always ask to see your ID, and they will check if the address matches the house. If your ID has an old address, they might ask you to pull up a utility bill on your phone or show a digital lease agreement.
I can see how that might be annoying when you're already stressed and locked out.
It can be. But if a locksmith stops and grills you on who you are and asks for proof of residency, that is actually a fantastic sign. It means they take security seriously and they are doing their job.
That's a great perspective shift. You actually want them to be suspicious.
You want them to be extremely diligent.
Let's move over to maintenance and prevention. We talked about rekeying and upgrading to smart locks, but what about the physical hardware itself? I feel like most people completely ignore their door locks until the key literally snaps off inside the cylinder.
Which happens constantly. And usually it's because the lock was stiff and grinding for months and the homeowner just ignored the warning signs. The number one maintenance tip is regular lubrication. But, and I really cannot stress this enough, put the WD-40 away.
But everyone reaches for the blue and yellow can. It fixes everything.
It does not fix locks. In fact, it destroys them. WD-40 is essentially a solvent, and it leaves behind this oily, sticky residue.
And that attracts dirt.
Yes, that residue attracts dust, dirt, and microscopic metal shavings from the key. Over time, all that gunk turns into a thick, gummy paste that essentially freezes the delicate internal pins. If you want to lubricate a lock, you need to use a dry lubricant.
Like what?
Graphite powder is great, or a Teflon-based dry spray like Tri-Flow.
Okay, so Teflon or graphite, absolutely no WD-40. What else can homeowners do?
Do the strike plate test. Listeners, you can go to your front door right now and do this. Open the door and look at the metal plate on the door frame where the deadbolt actually slides in. That's the strike plate. Look very closely at the screws holding it to the frame.
Okay.
If those screws are only ½ an inch long, which, by the way, is exactly what comes free in the box with almost every consumer lock, your home security is basically an illusion. A solid, forceful kick to the outside of the door will rip those short, tiny screws right out of the softwood trim.
So the lock itself holds firm, but the wooden door frame just explodes.
Exactly. The deadbolt didn't fail, the door frame failed. A locksmith's favorite physical security upgrade, and honestly the absolute cheapest one you can do yourself, is replacing those tiny screws with 3-inch hardened steel screws.
3 inches?
Yes. Because those long screws go completely through the flimsy decorative trim and bite deep into the actual structural 2x4 studs of the house frame.
That's what the sources called the humble screw theory.
It really is. That $2 hardware store upgrade makes your front door significantly harder to kick in.
Right.
It honestly adds more genuine physical security than a $1,000 smart camera system. The camera just watches somebody enter your house. The screws actually keep them out.
That is such a tangible, practical takeaway. I absolutely love that.
And while you're at it, check the door alignment, just like we mentioned earlier with the smart locks. If you have to physically lift the door handle up to get the deadbolt to turn, your hinges are sagging. Tighten the hinges, realign the strike plate. Your lock should operate smoothly with just 2 fingers.
We've covered a ton of ground here today. From the internal mechanics of brass pins to the digital protocols of the future and how to spot a scammer with a drill. If we have to distill all this down for the Los Angeles homeowner, what are the absolute top takeaways from all the research?
I'd say number 1 is control the access. Whenever you move in, or honestly, if you ever lose a key in public, rekey the locks immediately. Do not just assume you're safe. Number 2 is verify the professional. Don't ever get seduced by that fake $15 price tag online. Look for the state license, look for the branded van, and check the local reviews.
And the third,
don't let them drill. If a technician wants to take a power drill to a standard house lock in under 2 minutes, they are scamming you. Stop the job. And finally, upgrade the door frame. Those 3-inch steel screws and the strike plate are the absolute best return on investment for home security.
And of course, the overarching theme here. Prepare before the panic sets in. Don't wait until you're locked out in the rain to try and find a trustworthy friend in the business.
Save the number right now. It sounds so simple, but it's truly the only way to guarantee you get a professional and not a predator when things go wrong.
And for our listeners in the Los Angeles area, that number is West Point Locksmith. You can reach them directly at 310-295-4040. Whether you need that high-tech Matter smart lock installed and properly aligned, you need a complex car key replacement, or you just need an honest 24/7 emergency service that isn't going to drill your lock for no reason, they are the team to call.
They've got the 5-star reviews, they're local to LA, and they're incredibly reliable. That's West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040.
Check your strike plates today, throw away that can of WD-40, and stay safe out there. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.